Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Board Games Unlocked, and Brad and I are doing our top 5 surprising games of 2024. This is the first time that we are actually doing the surprising games of the year. I thought we had at least done it last year, but I guess not. So,
Yeah.
uh, this is, at least for me, it was kind of this is like an extended version of almost the top 10. Like, because the way I took it was, all right, here are the games that didn't make the top 10. Now, which one of those like actually surprised me were really good or fun? At least I took it in a positive way. Did you do surprisingly bad?
Oh no. Mine are surprisingly good, but these weren't really sniffing the top 100. These are just ones that I went into knowing that thinking I was not going to like, and
Yeah.
then ended up really enjoying them. But they weren't quite good enough to hit that, top 10.
Yeah, I
Deal,
have a few of those. I have a few that I was like, this is probably going to suck. But then there were more that I kind of had no expectation of, and they ended up being like
Mhm.
better than I thought they were.
Right.
Um, so yeah, I mean, without further ado, and there's actually one that was pretty cool that I played very recently that shot onto this list. So very excited to talk about them. But as always, we're going to start with an honorable mention. Um, so my honorable mention was a game that I again was going to steer completely clear of, that I expected the company who was producing it to just kind of shoehorn a game in, and based off their track record, this might just end up dying anyway. But my number 6 is Star Wars Unlimited.
Yes,
This was
yes.
actually one that you have dived pretty heavily into because you're just trying to get that itch for um, anything Netrunners. Please give me my competitive,
Yes.
LCG or CCG. And this one was one that I haven't played too much of. I actually want to dive deeper into it because the core systems of this game I actually like quite a bit. The idea of the deck construction seems not so open. I mean, granted, you can make any deck you want, but you're not gonna because it just wouldn't synergize well. Like the way that you were talking about it, they span all reaches of Star Wars. And I like the fact that all your cards are useful. So whenever you're building a deck, you're not just taking like a 60 card deck and it's like, well, 25 of these need to be my lands or they need to be my fuel or mana, whatever it is, and then the other um, 35 are going to be the cards that I actually want to play. It's every card is. And how many cards are in the deck? 40?
Oh God, you'd ask me that. I think it's like that. I think it's 40 or 50. I can't remember off the top of my head.
Okay.
Sorry.
But each one of those cards are either going to be used to play or they're going to be used as your actual fuel. But if unless you build a certain way, they are going to stay as your mana for all intents and purposes. There's also the two lanes of ground, like the ground unit and then the space unit, which you could, you know, build completely for a heavy ground force. You have your commander, whether it be in one of the precons as Vader or Luke. And then I think one thing that we ended up clarifying was that once your commander kind of gets all those tokens, you don't have to bring them out immediately. You can
Right.
wait to have them come out, which makes way more sense because if you're both seeding around the same time, at least Luke versus Vader, it's Vader's just way stronger. So it's like, all right, if they had to come out, then Luke just dies immediately. And that precon deck specifically is centered around Luke being around. But I really like that idea. I I wish that there were and there might be again with just other cards, but I wish that there were kind of more ways you could defend and without having a keyword that kind of forced you to target other characters. I wish you had ways to kind of actually chump block, but these games feel like they're designed to be quick and
That's what I was gonna
innovative.
say. Yeah, I think that's the reason they don't do that a whole lot.
Yeah. And it's not even that big of a deal. Like, I don't need these kinds of games to always be Magic. I can just play Magic if I want to. So this game is unique enough, and I'm not the biggest Star Wars fan, but I was pleasantly surprised at how solid this game was.
Yep, yep,
Not
good
good enough for
choice.
me to ever put money into it, but you can put all the money into it, and I'll just play
Yeah,
your game.
and I will. I'll just keep buying the sets as they come.
Yeah.
All
So that's my
right,
honorable mention.
good choice. All right, my number six is a game that I had zero interest in in this game at all. Like, it has a stupid name. It's the game on the table looks just odd to me. I was talked into playing it a few weeks ago because one of my friends over here got his copy, and but it seems to be getting a little more hype around, like, because it's been on some dice tower lists and stuff like that.
Okay.
And that is AI 100% human.
All
Um,
right.
but yeah, all the dice tower guys have this on their lists too for 2024, and it was one of those, just like I said, dumb name, and it was a Kickstarter,
Okay.
um, and it's a drafting game more or less, and you're just trying to. Um, it only lasts 2 rounds. There's a lot of stuff going on in those 2 rounds, of course, but and you are trying to create your own AI along with there already being another AI. So you're trying to make like combinations of cards to score. So when you
Okay.
put your when here's so when you put your cards down, they'll score automatically. But then at the end of each round, the other AI stuff will score, and there's a lot of symbols with it. I mean, as you can see, there's like 3 cards there on the left that are just icon cards,
Yeah.
and there's some people saying, is this a Seven Wonders killer? It's not, because it's very symbol heavy, and
It feels
it's
like every year there's, oh, this kills 7 wonders,
right,
and
right.
it's just like, no, it does, nothing does.
But as crazy as this looks, and like if you're on BGG and you look at other pictures, because there's other pictures of like a
Yeah,
game
yeah,
closer to
I had to
completion where it's
pull this
just
up.
crap everywhere.
This
And
never even came close to, I have never even heard of anything like
I
this.
I did not hear about it until I played my friend's copy, but then and I knew I ended up liking it a lot better than what I was expecting.
Yeah,
And then, like I said, like all the Dice Tower people are putting it on their top 10 of the year and stuff
wow.
and everything. But it's just like, so my expectations were so low because
Yeah.
it's too, it looked too mechanical to me and too like,
It almost looks like it's like there's a guy holding a hand of cards. It looks like this would be a trick-taking game or something like that. Like it feels with the numbers up at the top left, like these look like playing cards with abilities on them. But it's tableau building, is that what you said?
yeah, you're building your AI
Drafting game.
by doing it. You're
Interesting.
drafting and doing all that. And it's, it's not a bad game. I mean, it might be one that, because it's not a super expensive game. It might be one that you might enjoy, because I know you like kind of some of these, like the Turing machine, like stuff like that that makes you
Yeah,
think
like
and
the
all that
logic
stuff.
puzzles
Yeah,
and I mean I love combos. This
right.
feels like just off of description, feels like this would be a really good like card-based video game where it's like you play this and
Yeah,
then you see everything like chain and pop off.
yeah, and it's
Um,
to me, it's like super abstract too, because it's like you're creating your AI, but it's just cards with weird symbols in front of you. So it's like you have to like you know picture it in your head as you're going and doing different stuff.
sure.
But it ended up being it was a solid game. There was a bit of a learning curve at the beginning, just trying to learn.
Hmm.
There's so many symbols, and every card does. You know, there's no. It's language dependent totally. So it's just like just all symbols and shit. And but yeah, it was a surprise for me for sure, because I went in with like less than zero expectations. Because
Yeah. All right, cool. Yeah, I mean I'll have to check it out. It doesn't look interesting in the slightest, but I feel
I know,
like
yeah,
I mean, I feel like maybe just mechanics would make it a fun one, and the fact that it's 2 rounds, like
hmm
that's intriguing. So, all right, my number five. Now, this is a little bit of a stretch because the company typically produces great games. However, if it's not this company's storytelling games, I have usually veered away from. They haven't always landed for me. But this one I backed because it's by a designer that I typically like a lot, and the company is well renowned. So my number five is
Hmm.
Creature Caravan. So the company's Red Raven Games, and it's Ryan Lockett designing it, which it's not like he doesn't design a lot of his games. He's the primary designer. But like one of his that he didn't design that was Red Raven was Knights. Oh God, Knight's Night or
Nightfall.
something.
Nightfall.
Nightfall.
Yeah.
I'm like, what was it? And that was just okay. But Creature Caravan, it's not story driven in any way. There's no narrative. It's a tableau route game, kind of. So what you're doing is you are trying to move your caravan from one side of the board over to the right, and you're essentially gaining mainly food as a primary resource. And what you can either use that food to play cards in like a tableau, and or you can use that food to kind of sell and just exponentially get more and more rewards for doing that. Um, but the main game is actually you just roll 5 dice and you assign those dice to actions on your board. Everyone has the same actions, and you need at least that die's value. So if you want to gather 3 food or something, you need at least a 1 to do it. So you're never completely just screwed over by luck. But a lot of cards need a certain value to be able to utilize them. And after the first playthrough of this, I was like, okay, yeah, this game is kind of fine. Like I'm not too impressed by it. But then I kept playing it, and there are so many cards in this, and there's no seeding of the deck or anything. You just shuffle them, and you eventually get a bunch of different engines. That deck requires certain keywords of characters. There's an item expansion that you can shove in there that can only be assigned to cards with keywords on them that enhances abilities. And you can get a bunch of different combos, and yeah, you're not still doing a whole lot with that. You are either fighting these ember zombies or you're selling food or coins or you're moving across the map to get to the end to the town. Um, but with the way that the cards actually synergize with one another, it was a very light game that had more depth to it than I thought it was actually going to have, especially after that initial playthrough. Because the game is not complicated in any way. And I mean, it still has gorgeous artwork. Ryan, if you like Ryan Lockett's art, and yeah, it's a simple game that it's easy to get to the table. Those boards for the caravan are double-sided, and the terrain and stuff can matter because there's certain locations you can go to if you need to draw more cards or if you want to get enhancements of like fruit for cards. But then there are some cards that'll be like, hey, if you rest on the cloud space, do this ability. So like I said, a lot of the storytelling games that are done by Red Raven, I haven't really been a fan of, like Empires of the Void, Islebound, or City of Iron. Those games haven't really done it for me. Unlike Sleeping Gods or Near and Far, Now or Never, Above and Below, those are my favorite from this company.
Mhm.
But this one I'm actually keeping because it's a nice, not filler game, but it's a light game that still has a lot of depth to it with those cards.
Yeah.
So that's it. That's my number five, Creature Caravan.
Yeah, I'd heard good things about this. I hadn't played it. I haven't played many Red Raven games lately, though. I think the last one I played was the one we played a couple years ago, the
Oh,
Now
Now
or
or
Never.
Never.
Yeah.
Wow. You haven't played
So,
Sleeping Gods?
oh, never mind. Yes.
I
All right.
was like,
Yes,
wow,
I forgot.
okay.
I forgot that was him. I keep picturing like most of his games having like that, in that like trilogy of stuff and that same
Yeah,
kind of art. Yeah, I always forget Sleeping Gods was his.
it certainly is. So this definitely feels like it's his palate cleanser
Hmm.
after Distant Skies. He's like, I can't do another one. I need to
Yeah.
do something light.
Oh
So
yeah.
yeah, definitely check it out if you like all of his other standalone games. This one's a pretty good one.
Yeah. All right. My number five is a smaller game that is from a company that doesn't do games like this most of the time. Sinister Fish Games is the company, and they've done like those series of games like Villagers, Streets, those weird
Oh,
shaped boxes and stuff.
okay.
This is their take on a fantasy wizard battling game. Think like a smaller version of like Wiz War, in a way is what
Okay.
I picture it, and that is Wizards and Co. Um, this one, again, I went into it not expecting a whole lot because this company had their line of games. I like Streets and Villagers and stuff like that, but then they pop out something like this. I'm like, maybe they need to stay in their lane, but it actually ended up being pretty fun because it's a fairly short game, and pretty much what you're doing is um, you are going into these different dungeons as these spell slingers, or what they call them. You're trying to collect gems. That's
Okay.
your winning condition, your points and stuff. So you're trying to be the last one standing and all this stuff. But what happens is there's an octagon board out in the middle, and you guys are going to play cards. Like everybody that's in the game will play cards either face up or face down around the octagon deal, and then once the cards are all out, then there's going to be a big battle. And then it's pretty much the last person standing reaps the rewards. And there's different things that'll happen there in the middle, and everything. And it was just kind of one of those games. It was kind of just a fun, raucous game. I mean, you can't take, this is one of those do not take it very seriously kind of games.
Okay.
Because it does kind of like, I know Wiz War kind of has that same deal where you're just kind of going out and doing it, but it's more involved. This
I
one
see.
pretty much just stays right here. You're doing the stuff, it's one of those small footprint games.
Mm-hmm.
And there's all these different abilities that the bad guys have. There's a decent sized deck that you use when you're going through. And it says it's 3 to 6 players. I would say I've played it with 3 and 4, and there
Okay.
wasn't much of a difference. So I mean, I would say it's pretty solid with player count. I don't think 2 would be fun,
Yeah.
but yeah. So that's where I would go with that. But yeah, I mean, you collect all kinds of stuff depending on, there's gems you collect, there's artifacts you can pick up, there's other stuff like that. And I was pleasantly surprised with this one because of the type of games that this company's put out, and then just to
Yeah.
pop right into this zone. It was just
So
like,
are you basically playing a card just down in one of those lanes, and
yes,
is it like a trigger? Like each card will trigger and do something, and you're just trying to be the last one standing?
yes,
Okay.
yeah. So you're putting them, and yeah, and you're just doing that, and if you survive, you're good to go. I mean,
Do you get anything? Is it only the last one standing who gets something, or is there kind of like a
it is mainly the last one standing reaps the rewards. Yes, but you play
okay?
several rounds. There's several dungeons that you do in a game. It's not like this setup is is not the whole game. Like you'll
I
play through
see.
this. It almost has kind of like that weird epic spell wars thing. If you win a certain number, then so one person may win this dungeon, but then you go into another dungeon and play, and it could come out something different, and then you see what you have at the end of all the
Okay.
dungeons. But yeah, it was a pleasant little surprise. I mean,
Nice.
it's not like something that I'm going to run to add to my collection or anything, but it was, it's definitely worth the play if you can
Fun
find it.
time.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, man, you were pulling some came straight out of your ass. I have never heard any of these.
Oh,
I
just
hope it
wait.
continues. I hope I haven't heard of a single game on this list.
You've heard of probably at least 2 of them.
Okay.
2 of the next ones you will, but I don't know about the next 2, or there's 2 of them I'm not sure about, but
Yeah.
there's 2 that you should have probably.
Sweet. All right. My number 4 is one that was actually told to me by a friend who went to a convention, and he kept hyping it up. It's from, do you know the company All Play?
Yeah.
Okay. So All Play is actually based out of Kansas City, which is kind of intriguing. And their philosophy, their business philosophy is they will not print games if the rules cannot fit on 2 pages. And typically that's going to come up with some either very light games, but honestly, every game that they have made that I've gone back to play, QE and Kabuto Sumo, I've ended up loving.
Kabuto Sumo is awesome. I
It is
like
a
that
lot of
game.
fun, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I was actually playing that with my girlfriend, and she was like, "I really like this game." So,
Mhm.
and QE is fantastic, even though I've never won. I suck so hard at that game. Anyway, this is a game that I got that is easily their most complex, but it's a word game that I very much enjoy, and that is A Message from the Stars. This one was it was on a list of, I think, oh, what's Chrissy from the Dice Tower when they were doing like their deduction games.
Mhm.
This is in the same wheelhouse as like Decrypto, but almost even more, not complex. Decrypto is a lot more rules complexity, but this one I find very interesting on how you're actually trying to deduce. So, how it works is one person is playing an alien, and they have a certain um they have a screen that has different letters on them, and you're trying to convey a message to the other players. And how you do that and how the players deduce it is so fascinating to me because you, as the alien player, you're looking at the cards that you have, and there's rarities of the letters. And so all of those are worth a certain number of points, as well as like multipliers. Some might be a zero, it might be a one, or a times two. And whenever you give the players a word, you assign it a score, and that's all you do because it's one of those games where the alien or the one person doesn't get to speak. So you're doing your best to actually give them a word that they can deduce and figure out um, why the score is what it is. And there's rules on, hey, if there's a negative, then this is always the case. If it's a zero, if the score is a zero, then this might be the edge case. And I remember the first time playing this, I was like, how the hell am I supposed to like make sense of what these words are? Because not only are you trying to have the players guess what the six words or the yeah, what the six letters are, you're also trying to get them to guess. There are categories, and there's a word in each category you're trying to get them to guess too. And you're just trying to get a score. Like the best score is where you get all the categories correct and you get all the letters correct. Uh, but every time I've played this, I'm fascinated by how people take my clues and how other people, like how the alien is also giving their clues. So it's a bit to kind of wrap your head around, yeah, because there's the trust, amplify, and suspicion. That's what they were called. So I think the amplify, that letter will multiply whatever the value is. Trust is a +1, and suspicion makes it negative. Um, yeah, it's a very interesting word deduction game that if you like games like Decrypto is the main one I can kind of compare it to, then I would highly recommend checking this out because again, it's a two-page rule book because they will not print anything that's more than that. So, but they really fit that 2 pages in on this one. The other two games, QE and Kabuto Sumo, could be half a page on how they kind of um, design their games. So, and I love word games because they're virtually infinite replayability. Like just the way you're going to shuffle the cards and the letters you're going to get are going to give you different multipliers, therefore giving you different words. And the message that you're trying to get for the players is going to be different too. So yeah, this one definitely took me by surprise at kind of how deep it is, but
Mhm.
yet how fun it is as a word game. So that's my number four, Message from the Stars.
Yeah, I had heard a lot about this. A lot of people talk it up pretty good. I've never played it, but it looks like it'd be interesting.
Yeah,
All
it
right.
certainly is.
So here's another game that you've never heard of. And I hadn't either until mm, 2 months ago or so. I was listening to a podcast and they talked it up a bunch. And it's super cheap. You can get it on Amazon for like $20. But the two designers of this game are two designers that I enjoy most of their stuff. and it's Eric Lang and Phil Walker Harding. They teamed
Okay.
up to do this. Okay. All right. Are you ready? It's
Yeah.
Wrath of Fire Mountain.
Okay,
Now,
so I mean obviously I know Eric Lang. Phil Walker Harding, didn't he do that plant game?
Phil
That's the
Walker
only one
Hart,
of his.
he did that. He did Barron Park. He does a lot
Okay.
of tiling stuff, and he's done a lot of games that
Yeah.
fit in that zone. Um, so anyway,
Game right, huh?
yeah,
Okay.
and like I said, it's like 20 something on Amazon, and it's this game is
Ow.
another game in the kind of like the way Blood Rage is played. This reminds me of a very, very small, easier version of Blood Rage,
All right.
um, which is the Eric Lang part, obviously.
Yeah.
But pretty much what you're doing in this is you have these tribes people, and there's going to be a mountain. Let me see what the picture is. All right, so you're going to lay out a grid that's going to have different locations like forests and water and all that stuff. And there's also a mountain that's on a deal. So you are going to roll dice, Yahtzee style, and you can do different things with it. You can, if you roll a volcano symbol at the end, then you need to put one of your workers on the volcano tile, and there's a certain number of spaces around the volcano that you can have people there. If you roll an egg, you can put a person on the dinosaur hatching area. Um, and then also there's feet that let you move spaces.
Oh, hell yeah.
You can move through water, but you can't stop on water.
Okay.
And then you can just occupy, because it's area control too, so you're trying to occupy certain positions and spaces and stuff. So what happens is, if for some reason you hatch a dinosaur, then that's the part of, think of like Blood Rage, where you get control of one of those monsters.
Mm-hmm.
You get control of a dinosaur. It goes into your play area, and you can put it out just like anything else. And they have special powers and stuff like that.
Okay.
Um, so you get control of these T-Rexes or whatever dinosaurs are out at that point. Once all the spots around the volcano are filled, then the volcano erupts. So players get points for being there. However many people you have around the mountain, you celebrate by getting points for dying, I guess. And then you look at each type of region that could be clustered, could be whatever, and you gain points for having area control in those. And then you also just like, then you clear them off. So like the people that were on the volcano go back into your play area, they clear off, and you just get points. It's like a minimized version of Blood Rage, more or less,
Yeah.
just in a prehistoric deal. I mean, and it just works. I mean, it's a really fast game. You can get a game of this done in half an hour.
Okay.
And it's just set for a $20 game, and to get the same kind of feel a little bit as like a Blood Rage without there's no card drafting or anything like that.
Yeah.
You're just rolling the dice, Yahtzee style, doing what it says.
Mm-hmm.
It's worth the $20. I mean, if it's just to have this small little game sitting there, just to have that feeling.
Yeah. I'm getting I mean from Phil Walker Harding, I've played a few of his games, so I'm not truly familiar with his design. Like it feels more like Eric Lang and then Game Rights Production because they did Forbidden Island and Forbidden Desert. Like I'm getting Forbidden Desert vibes,
Mm-hmm.
uh, as well as yeah, kind of like the area majority and then the T-Rex hatching thing.
Yeah.
Is like you said, Eric Lang. Fascinating.
But yeah, this one was, it was a good surprise. I mean, I mainly got it because of the designers,
Yeah.
and just because, and the price, of course, being so cheap, and it ended up being a fun little game.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. Just all these left field games. Mine are definitely a lot more mainstream.
I'll have
I've
a
just
couple that'll be like, two of the next three will be ones that have been heard of.
okay. Well, definitely all of mine have been heard of, I think. So, my number three is a game that you actually showed me, and it's a retheme of a game that I actually do not like at all.
Oh, yeah.
And this one, I was like, yeah, sure, why not? Let's give it a shot. And I was like, this is actually really good, and I don't know why. My number three is
Yeah.
Lord of the Rings Duel for Middle Earth. So this is based off of Seven Wonders Duel, which I am not a fan of really in any shape or form. But this is kind of the adjustments that they made in this one giving it a Lord of the Rings theme with Vincent Dutrait art is a plus in my book. But the changes that they made to it, I think, are just better in every way, really. So like there's no war track anymore. There's no tug of war of like this is just kind of annoying if I'm trying to go military victory and it just keeps going back, and then I feel like I'm wasting my time. You have this kind of race track where the Fellowship is trying to move to get the ring to Mount Doom, but if the other player is like the Nazgul player is getting those same rings, then they're progressively advancing, and it never goes back. So they're always making advancements, which kind of adds a nice theme of a chase or a hunt down, which is really cool. Then it also adds this area majority, like kind of like every section is a fight, so you can win through having a majority of locations under your control. It's not the most in-depth combat, but it works. It's another path to kind of keep in mind. On top of the faction science victory that gives you benefits and just exponential benefits on top of the those locations that you can spend you need a bunch of symbols for, but they give you really cool benefits. Like everything in this is just, I think, great and completely bite-sized, but then makes that pyramid setup that I usually find extremely annoying uh in Seven Wonders Duel just kind of work, and it feels like you're not doing as many hate drafting. Like
Right.
clearly that's going to happen, but most of the time you're taking cards for use instead of just being like, I'll just get rid of this for money. Oh, I know you need this and I'll get rid of it, and the cards under it flip and it's a better version of what I just got rid of for you now. That
Right.
didn't never felt like it really happened. And
Hmm.
I think the addition of being able to buy those locations to stall a turn
Yes.
helps with that.
Very much so.
So, and I understand that some of the expansions in Seven Wonders Duel kind of add more stalling of turns, so it doesn't feel like. But just none of those expansions they helped me not hate Seven Wonders Duel as much, but still just never really did it for me. And this could just be because it's a Lord of the Rings theme that's clouding my judgment, where it's like, all the Seven Wonders Duel expansion do all this stuff too. But it's like, okay, fair enough. Is it Lord of the Rings? No, then I don't give a shit.
Right.
So yeah, this one I had a great time with. Now, the only thing I wish they would do is add more of those tiles. Like they don't really need to add any more of anything else, just more variety of those tiles would be
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah. I think that's true.
So yeah, this one, because I just do not like Seven Wonders Duel, this one was good enough that I'll probably pick up my own copy.
Sweet.
Yeah. So that's my number
Awesome.
three. Lord of the Rings Duel for Middle Earth.
Good choice. All right. My number three. I'm hoping you heard of this one. Um, this one was one that came out a few years ago, actually, in Brazil. And it just finally made it to the US this year. Arcane Wonders picked it up and brought it in. There was big licensing issues because of the theme of it.
Okay.
Is why it didn't come into the US until this year. Um, and it's ended up being it was a good pickup because it went to, I want to say when it got brought over here, it went to Barnes and Noble was the first place it went to, um,
Interesting.
and everything. And that is Comic Hunters.
I have heard of this, but I
Yes.
don't know anything about it.
Well, the big Marvel thing was the thing. Like in Brazil, they did it, and just there was no way. The only way you could get them over here is if you paid a fortune to bootleg one.
Yeah,
from here. But then when Arcane Wonders picked it up, mainly because I mean, plus with Spin Master game, or is it Spin Master? Yeah, Spin
I think
Master
so.
Games
Yeah.
also does Marvel stuff with like DC or Marvel United and all that stuff. They
Okay.
kind of had that shoe in. So what this one is all about is you are trying to get the best comic collection. It's not a difficult game at all. Um, the more it goes 1 to 4, anything I would say it works fine. The solo I haven't actually played it solo, surprisingly, but I would say you at least need 3. I would think 3 or 4 probably to make it sing the best. But pretty much what you're doing is there's 3 rounds, right? So you're going to visit. There's going to be 4 different locations that you can visit, like comic book locations.
Okay. And are these real comics?
Yes, there's a lot of
Okay.
them that are actually real ones. I'm not super huge in a lot of these comics to know if they're all
Okay.
100% real, but I mean they look like. I mean it looks like the Marvel art and all that stuff.
Yeah.
There are some that I recognize, but which was one of the reasons why it had a tough time getting
Yeah.
over here.
Like that's if they are all like legitimate Marvel comics, that's impressive.
Yeah. Now the component quality of this game is not great.
Okay.
I mean, it's like a $25 game.
They didn't have
It's
enough
like
money left over to make good
right.
components after paying Marvel.
So it doesn't have the greatest of components, and stuff like that. But just make sure you sleeve your cards because the cards aren't like super,
Yeah.
you know, high quality thickness and stuff. But still for the gaming purposes. But so you're going to visit locations. You can purchase comic books to add to your collection, and then like you're looking for certain things like um, the first appearance of this hero or their new uniforms. They kind of
Okay.
go into. So if you want to collect Thor stuff, you're looking for a lot of different versions of the Thor stuff for your collection and stuff like that. But there's
I'm
these different
assuming it's just set collection.
more or less, yeah. And then you're
Okay.
moving up on those tracks on that top board
All right.
to score points at the end. Because pretty much what you're doing is you're doing all this different stuff, and um, after 3 rounds, the player with the most points acclaimed is the greatest comic book collector of all time and wins the game. I mean, and like I said, it's not super complex, but it's really neat to look at because
Yeah.
having these cool comic book covers and you're picking them up and you're doing all this stuff and it's like you're buying them and adding them to your collection and trying to do stuff. It's just a neat cheap game to pick up, and
Yeah.
and it actually surprised me quite a bit because just because it's one of those things that the gameplay outplays the component quality.
Yeah.
Plus it's a smaller box game, not super tiny, but it's
Hmm.
small enough, and it's like one of those things that you
Didn't
everybody needs to, I think,
Age of
try it.
Comics come out this year as well? No, that came out
That
last
was
year.
last year, I think,
Okay.
but it
I was
didn't
trying to
have
think. I'm like
real
that. Yeah, I was like, man, in recent times, I feel like their comic books has been kind of a
that one's much more complex, the Age of
okay.
Comics.
This one, um, yeah, I would mainly want this, and I'm not into comics at all. Like I steered clear of that. I wanted to get into it, but it's like, where the hell do you even begin
Oh, I
at
know.
this point?
Yeah.
So I just completely stay away from it. But I used to work at Vintage Stock, and the people that this game is centered around, the people who collect comics,
Mhm.
are psychopaths. They are absolutely insane human beings. And like it's like, isn't this game fun about collecting comics? It's like, no, not to the people who do it for real. They will kill you for the first appearance of a hero or something. It's insane.
It
But
is.
it looks super cool. Like I think if these are all legitimate real comics, that's some research.
Yep.
If you're like looking for the first appearance of Spider-Man and they have the comic picture of that real comic book, that's super cool.
Yep.
So, all right, good deal. My number 2 was actually a game that was sent to me as a review copy, which is pretty neat. And I wasn't gonna do anything with this. It was like, okay, it's a game that I can cover. It's a theme. This is on here, and it's at number two because the theme is so uninteresting. Even people who are in this hobby are not interested in the hobby. I don't know why they're sick. They have to do something. But I remember watching the how to play for it, and I was like, shit, I'm gonna like this game, and I did. So my number two is
Oh gosh, yeah.
Stamp Swap, the sexy game of what is it, philatling, phylactery? What's I always forget it. Uh,
I have a huge collection of stamps.
and you're sick. You
Oh,
are
it's not.
unwell.
I have not. I've never messed with them. My great grandmother passed away, and she was a huge collector, so she passed them down to me. I have them in this big tote down in the basement, but she
Gotcha.
has tons from all over the
It
world and
is called,
everything.
yeah, philately. Study of postage stamps, stamps, envelope, postmarks, postcard. I mean, I can see postcards a little bit more than stamps, but um, this kind of gives me a fit to print vibe because you have a board that you are going to be taking and drafting various stamps of shapes and sizes, and you're going to put them on your board to try and score those color coded things. Hey, you get 3 points per stamp of one color. But this does a lot of stuff that is seen in other games, but it gels very well here. So one mechanism that is not done a whole lot in games, but I always love it when it is done, is the I pick you choose.
Mhm.
So whenever you are drafting a certain number of stamps or cards or whatever is in the main board or the main drafting area, you get one to pick. You get one to keep. Like you're for sure going to get at least one thing that you drafted, but then you take three of you take the five that you have left over, put three of them, or just organize them in whatever situation you want. You just have to make two piles. So you can do four of things in one and one in another. And then other players are going to look around and they're going to take, one of your two things, and then you get to keep the rest. So again, kind of like Isle of Skye, where it's like you're organizing and positioning the stacks in like a way that it's like you're trying to incentivize someone to take something from you so you can keep what you really want, but you don't know what other people are going for. They might really need something that's going to score them big on one of these scorecards or whatever their I can't remember, but that each board has like a type of like an innate collecting thing, whether it might
Mhm.
be animals or a certain theme. But so the I pick you choose mechanism is awesome. But the other thing I really like is there's just 3 rounds, the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And at the end of each round, you pick one of those four, the red, orange, yellow, and green, to score. So you're eventually you might be seeding up to really build up towards Sunday to get a lot of points, but you eventually have kind of like cartographers a little bit. Again, things that you've seen in other games but are implemented here. And then there's the blue card that is the final round, kind of big scoring. So and then the spatial awareness of the board again reminds me of Fit to Print, but this surprised me so much by just all the different mechanisms that are thrown into a very simple game that just really scratch my brain in a good way. Like I love spatial awareness games like this. I pick you choose, public objective scoring, and it's a relatively short game. Because what's also interesting is you can draft cards. So in that where that person is like grabbing, there's those stamps that you can take, but you can also take any of those cards, and those might give you unique abilities, or you might draft cards that give you unique ways of scoring as well. So there's a decent amount of content in this game, and also some of those tokens might be face down that you run the risk of just grabbing. uh, but each round there's also an event that'll affect the day. So there's a, a there's a lot in this box, and it's Stonemeyer that is about stamps. So
Interesting.
if you if you get off on licking stamps, then this is the game for you.
You don't lick the stamps. You
You
don't
don't
lick
lick the
collected
stamps?
stamps. No, I'm just joking.
Oh, I'm like, you would know. That's why your
No.
lips are always chapped. You're a huge
Yeah.
stamp enthusiast. So, yeah, it was your grandma's collection. That's where all your money's going, is
Yeah.
buying valuable stamps.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my number 2, stamp swap.
All right. Well, I might need to try that sometime because I think Amy might like that one. Um, all right. My number 2 is probably the most unique game on this list. Probably one of the most unique games I played this entire year. Because I have not really done a whole lot of role-playing games. Over COVID, I did a lot of the online DVD stuff, or not
Yeah.
DVD, D&D stuff, and stuff
And then
like that.
bedroom role playing, you're huge into.
But this was one. It's from Smirk and Dagger. So they've done Deep Throat Caverns, and is it Deep Throat? What was it called?
Yeah, I told you do bedroom role play.
No. What is the name of it?
Cutthroat.
Not Jesus.
That's a different game.
Yeah,
18 and older.
Yeah, Cutthroat Caverns. So anyway, what this one is you're an adventure party. It plays 3 to 6. Well, I guess I better tell you the name of the game first, huh? It's Adventure Party, the role-playing party game. So the angle of this game is there are 3 scenarios that you're going to be playing with your adventuring party, and you all have a shield. So as you go through this adventure, you guys will roll your dice, and then you will have, let's see what pictures she put here. Yeah, so like
I think I saw this being played at Gen Con.
right. So you're going to have stuff over here that's going to tell you like what a die roll for you would do, right?
Yeah.
Nobody else sees your stuff, and then you're going to be reading these adventures and going through these adventures. And what will happen is each player's turn, the GM DM, whatever you want to call them,
It's probably GM.
It's GM, yeah. Switches around with it, and what you do is you have to think like Gloom. Remember how you like come up with your own story and stuff? This one, depending on what's happening in the scenario, you come up with your own story of what you do in that situation with what you rolled.
Okay.
And so you have to come up with this story, and then the GM has to guess as close as possible to what number you rolled. So if you gloriously kill something with all this stuff, they're gonna be like, oh well, that's a 20, or whatever. Or if you fail, you have to do something or say something really funny because you failed miserably.
Yeah.
And then if the closer that the GM gets to what you actually rolled, your team gets experience points. So it's like it's got that really neat, like it's got the storytelling elements. It's very group dependent, of course. You're not going to play with somebody that just sits there and be like, "Oh, I missed," or something like that. You gotta really elaborate and be and stuff. But I thought it was really, really clever because it turns it into kind of like a not deduction really, but you're just trying to figure out what die roll they could have gotten. And
so it's team based as well.
Yeah, you are the deal. So you're wanting to. Nobody can know what you rolled. The GM is the one that is who you're kind of telling. You're telling the story to the whole group, but the GM is the one that has to decide the number. Yeah, and you get more experience if you hit it head on.
Okay.
And it's just one of those. It's not expensive either. It's like a $35 game. Yeah. And it's one I want to add to my, even though I know I'll never get it played, but it'd be one that just to have for if you have groups,
if you ever actually just do a large group game day.
Right. Because the guys over in Joplin, would like it because they play D&D all the time. So I think this would be a fun one just to kind of have to toss in and stuff. And it's but I just thought it was really clever, because it has the
what are these item
like you can cards? Add those into your deal. Those are some of the things you can earn throughout the different scenarios and stuff. So then you can kind of some of them, the hammer doesn't really do it. But some of the items give you like you'll have them laid out, so then it may alter your number a little bit, like
Oh, okay.
your ranges and stuff.
Yeah, because I was
But
like, wait, why is if it's all storytelling, what's the
right.
proficiency and all that? Got it.
So then you have your proficiencies are over here, so you can use those as kind of stuff. Just it's just very open, and you can just so you're not trying to deceive at all. You're just trying to tell the best story without
Yeah.
being, because you can't be like super direct, of course. But
Hmm.
you're just earning experience points for it, and stuff like that. It's just a really fun, different style of game.
Yeah.
Kind of like a reverse uh, D&D session. Kind of in a weird
Yeah,
thing
because the
because
players are telling the story, not
right,
the GM.
right,
Yeah, that is interesting. I do remember seeing this being played at Gen Con, and obviously I didn't play it myself, so I didn't like really grasp what it was. Um, yeah, I could see this being a lot of fun where it's like you miss like you're planning a D&D game or D&D session and some people back out, they can't make
mhm,
it and so it might get canceled, but it's like, "Oh, well, I mean, we can still kind of do it."
right.
Um,
It's
yeah,
definitely it's
this
definitely a pickup though for sure. I
yeah,
think. I mean, I don't own it yet, but I will.
this
Um,
feels like like 100% ride or die on your group.
oh yeah, for
Like
sure.
especially because not only is it storytelling to make the game fun, but it's teams, so you need a certain number of players as well.
Mhm. Yeah, the 3 to 6, I'd say. I mean,
4 or 6, right? Well, I guess five. You would want five because the GM and then the two people on the team, right?
right. Yeah, I mean, yeah. So it just goes, yeah. So the GM will pass though,
Oh,
too.
it is. Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
the
okay.
GM passes. So it goes, so like each time you'll move around the deal, so
Gotcha. Now,
it doesn't stay stagnant.
are there how many adventure scenarios are
There's
there?
you play through three. The one I played, the guy had the expansion, so I'm not 100% sure what came just in the
Oh,
base
okay.
box because there's like one or two expansions
Yeah.
out that adds more
Looks like there's a
scenarios and stuff.
signature series, 24 exciting new adventure scenarios.
Okay,
Okay. So it looks like the base game would have um multiple, but you just play through three.
right.
Yeah.
So
I can see
it's
this
it's
being
it's
a
a
lot
fun
of
one.
fun.
Yeah.
I never get those storytelling games, but it doesn't. It's like because you also need improv people who. But
Mhm.
I guess if you're gonna play this, you're typically gonna be playing it with people who do role
Yeah.
playing.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
Cool. Yeah, I might have to give this one a shot. I think this would be a really fun drinking
Well,
game too.
I just ordered it.
Oh, okay.
So because they have it in the expansion on Amazon, and I have a bunch of Amazon gift card credits. So
Oh, nice, nice. Now, I mean, unfortunately, it's no Deep Throat Caverns, but maybe you can
yeah.
throw that into the story. Nat 20 as a bard. God damn it, I have to zip this troll's pants down. Is that a one? No. Way off.
yeah.
Nice. All right. My number one surprising games. Now, to be fair, Stamp Swap was actually my number one. Then I had gotten this game for a friend of mine because this theme is his favorite game of this genre. And I got it for him for Christmas. And then I went over and we played it. And we played it back to back to back. And originally, when this was announced, I was like, I'm gonna stay away from it. Then I kept hearing good things, so I'm like, damn, I might have to give it a shot. And this is the one that whenever I said at the beginning that this could have made the top 10 if I actually played a little bit more of it, and
oh,
that is Dead
interesting.
Cells. So if you're not familiar, Dead Cells is a roguelike that is akin to, I mean, it's your Metroidvania like type of roguelike. More so than like Slay the Spire. Slay the Spire is a deck builder, but what's fascinating is in the same year, two roguelike games that are single player came out and made them cooperative. And I was never going to go for this game because unlike Slay the Spire, this one is fast paced and quick and combat heavy and build heavy that I was like, there's no way this is gonna work. But then I played Slay the Spire, and that being cooperative honestly made me look at Dead Cells again. I was like, well, okay, if they can turn a single player into a cooperative game, then this might just work out. And it really does. Somehow they decided they made it work. It's you're gonna die a lot, but kind of unlike Slay the Spire, where like the better you do, the harder the game gets. This one is the more you play, the more permanent upgrades you're gonna get. That's just gonna help you along your run.
Right.
Uh, but what's really cool about this is that as you're continuously doing runs over and over in like the prisoners' quarters and stuff, you will eventually unlock permanent upgrades to where you don't have to start in the prisoners' quarters anymore. You can now have healing flasks. You have more items that can be randomly dropped. It's still a roguelike in that you're never going to start with, like, you can start with some weapons, but you'll eventually just have a unique equipment deck of just good cards that can work for a build. There's 4 different types of headless is what they're called that all have like different type of abilities that you can go up on. But what's fascinating is because Dead Cells is such a combat heavy game, the combat needed to be important and succeed in this game. And it's very abstract, but it really works. Like again, it's fast paced. You move along one of those paths, flip over a tile, it might tell you if it's a regular or elite enemy. And then you just draw from that deck and you place them up at the top where there's those 4 arrows, like those arrow sections. Those are pretty much just the range of where the enemies go. And then you have 3 rounds. And when you're playing cards, your cards will have actions on 1, 2, or 3 rounds. So you're trying to time on when you want things to be done. And it's quick. It's quick. It feels like Dead Cells for the most part. I love the kind of pseudo legacy aspect of that very top board is where you will put permanent upgrades and you're collecting money that you use on the run, and then there's cells that you get that are for the permanent buffs. It and then there's all the different biomes that you go through and the different bosses. If you're familiar with Dead Cells at all, then you're gonna see the bosses from that game. It honestly, it works. It works super well, and I wasn't ever gonna touch this because, like Slay the Spire, I was like, if I want to play Dead Cells, I'll play the video game. But Scorpion Mass, the company, like they make a lot of fantastic games, and I mean, this is one that I am going to pick up my copy, but I want the collector's edition because the storage is better from what
Right.
I've heard. The storage in the retail version isn't bad. It's just not as organized. So, but it's not like I don't even know if there's like really anything extra except the biomes have tuck boxes in the collector's edition and there's the miniature. As far as I'm aware of the differences and maybe the upgraded components, but other than that, everything else is just pretty much the same. Yeah, it's a really good one, and this is one because it's not a campaign either, so you can just play it and then be like, all right, put it up. You're gonna have your permanent upgrades and everything already there. Then you play it again, do a run or two, put it up. So yeah,
Yeah.
this one was a pleasant surprise, and I will be getting a copy.
All right.
So that's my number 1 surprising game of 2024.
My number one was a game that was on your top 10 of the year.
Ooh.
And it was
Ooh.
one that when you asked if if we could play it that day, I did just because I'm not an ass most of the time, but because I said this when you were doing your top 10 that I don't usually like the whole anthropomorphic animal kind of stuff. But this one comes from a unique direction, and that is Peacemakers.
Nice.
The horrors of war. This one, like the cover doesn't do anything for me. Like
No, but that gecko, he
I
is
know.
having a meltdown.
Yes.
They're all
he's
They're all dying.
he's seen some shit.
Yeah, he has. This is but like the badger or whatever. He's like, okay, so I think this is where they're located, and he's having PTSD.
Well, and then that fox thing, he's having a little too much fun. But
Yeah, he's ready to be soaked in blood.
yeah, but no, this one is it was ended up being very intriguing because you're pretty much there's two warring factions, and you are, don't, I mean, like the title says, you're peacemakers. You're trying to resolve the conflict, depending on how who's playing. So you're trying to get them down into the green zones on their books, and that's another. I like how they have the two separate books that make out the playing area.
Hmm.
Um, but you have your decks because you're going to pick one of the characters that you're controlling, and you have um, there's those characters that that your deck of cards that you get will have different abilities and stuff on them, and if you get cards of your person, you can do more with it. So but you can trade. If you're in the
Hmm.
same area, you may want in the scenario or two we played, we needed to have some of these things kill each other to try to,
Yeah.
or else they were going to overthrow the other one. So we needed to like balance it out. And you kind of have each of the warring factions has these two little decks that will determine their movement and what they do, and everything. So it's like you have to play that, keep that in mind when you're doing this stuff. The board is very small and strategic, so you're like really have to. It's a thinky one for sure.
Yeah, and it really is because if you don't like figure out how the factions work, because they like will act different depending on who they're fighting, like the cards that are there, and the rules of the scenario will alter things too. Like the very first one, for example, they have like this warmongering leader that they rally behind. So if he doesn't ever take damage, they just constantly keep gaining morale, and you want their morale to go low. So you need to figure out what they're gonna do so you can kind of get them in bad position so the leader starts taking damage. But if he dies, then you just outright lose.
Mhm.
Because you can't have morale go down to zero where they just give up and kill themselves. So it's a really striking balance,
Mhm.
and positioning is so important because it's not just like, oh, I'm near these guys. You have to be in their space to talk to them and be like, hey, okay, I know that they're going to be over there by the rocks. Go and shoot them.
Mhm. Well, and then like you had said at one point, like the horror cards you pick up
Yeah.
too, and everything. It's just the whole PTSD of being in the war and stuff. It's just like this game they went the right direction. I'll admit,
Hmm.
going with the animals. I mean, they could have made a full on war game like this and
Yeah.
and stuff if they wanted to, but it would have been a little more too realistic probably. So going with the animal route, I think it was a smart decision, and it was just ended up being a really fun one to the point where I almost have thought about picking it up. I haven't quite yet, but
Yeah, I know. I mean, One Stop Co-op Shop does a solo
mhm.
video on it, so I mean, you can easily two-hand it,
Oh yeah, yeah,
uh,
for sure.
because it's not like you can't talk about what cards you got or anything
Hmm.
like that. So it's uh, it's a fascinating one. So I hope they support it. I hope
Yep,
they end up doing more scenarios because even though there's six and each of them have like different achievements to modify each scenario, which gives you a ton of game.
right,
Uh, just more factions would be cool. And if we're basing it off of their Dale of Merchants game, they have a lot of animals.
yeah,
They have a
for
lot of
sure.
animals they can use. So yeah, this one was good enough to put into my top 10. But I'm glad you liked it.
Hmm.
Awesome. Well, that is it, everyone. That is our top five surprising games of 2024. I hope you enjoyed the new top five of the year, and I imagine we'll continue doing surprising games because it's nice to talk about games that, while not meeting like our favorites, these were all still great games, and it's always nice to be pleasantly surprised in a good way instead of being utterly disappointed. Which we'll talk
Right.
about those on a different list.
Yes.
Um, But yeah, that's it, everyone. Let us know what games surprised you in 2024. Let us know what you think of these games in the comments below. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you. Hey everyone, thank you for watching, and I really hope that you enjoyed the video. If you would like to see more of my content, go ahead and click that subscribe button and the bell to be notified whenever I upload any new content. If you feel like supporting the channel, you can go ahead and click that Patreon link to be taken to my Patreon, and any help is truly appreciated. Other than that, stick around for any other run-throughs or reviews or cool top 10s or whatever I feel like putting on. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you.